It's a privilege and an honor to present to you our first speaker, Deacon Tovia Hawkins.
Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. You may be seated. I'd like everyone to turn over to Daniel 12, Daniel 12:1. Now, we're talking about the knowledge being increased and how it has to deal with prophecy. So keep that in mind as you witness these things taking place. This is prophecy being fulfilled in front of your very eyes. Daniel 12:1. And I want you to notice, and there will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation to that same time. And then verse 4, but you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end, and many will run to and fro, and knowledge will be. Remember what I talked about will be last week, to take place, especially of deliberate action or purpose. It's not something that just occurred. Knowledge just they didn't just come up with this stuff. There was a purpose for it, and it was brought about, and it was inspired for a reason. And knowledge will be increased. The knowledge will be increased in these last days. I'd like to play the video now. Pay close attention to words like never before, the right idea at the right time, unprecedented.
In just 45 years, the computer has permeated almost every aspect of modern life.
People came to the notion that future computers would be electronic like the ENIAC, but they would also have their instructions stored in the memory along with the data.
This idea had already occurred to ENIAC's designers, but the Army was anxious to have their machine as soon as possible. World War II was a technological triumph. It gave birth to radar, financed the development of rockets, created the atomic bomb. Among these spectacular achievements was a quieter project, one that was shrouded in secrecy at the University of Pennsylvania. Behind the walls of this building, a small team of scientists and engineers created a machine designed specifically for war. That machine was the computer. ENIAC had been created for one purpose, to calculate ballistic tables for the huge guns of World War II. Working around the clock to meet the needs of both NASA and the military, electronics firms discovered the true genius of the integrated circuit. NASA scientists knew a small, lightweight computer could only be built from integrated circuits, and they were willing to pay any price. So was the Pentagon. A Cold War between two superpowers demanded weapons of unprecedented sophistication. By the early 1960s, computers made from integrated circuits were guiding the Minuteman II missiles, the submarine-launched Polaris missiles, and Air Force jets.
They created the world's first all-electronic, general-purpose digital computer. When the war started, they were picked especially to do computations for the Army for long guns and their firing tables. They solved these equations that they thought would take 2 years in 2 hours. They did it. So the world changed.
Starting the story with you, the first atomic bomb at Trinity, which was the Manhattan Project. It was a little bit like TED. It brought a whole lot of very smart people together. I'm going to tell you the story of the birth of digital computing. This was a perfect introduction. And it's a story that did work. It did happen, and the machines are all around us. And it was a technology that was inevitable. If the people I'm going to tell you the story about, if they hadn't done it, somebody else would have. So it was sort of the right idea at the right time. It was sort of the right idea at the right time. It was sort of the right idea at the right time. All back to the ENIAC here, but actually the machine I'm going to tell you about, the Institute for Advanced Study machine, which is way up there, really should be down there. So I'm trying to revise history and give some of these guys more credit than they've had. Von Neumann and a logician and a mathematician from the Army put this together. Then they needed a place to build it. When RCA said no, that's when they decided to build it in Princeton, where Freeman works at the Institute. Oppenheimer, who had built the bomb, the machine was actually used mainly for doing bomb calculations. And that's what I've been doing this last 6 months, is going through the logs. MANIAC, which became the acronym for machine, Mathematical, Numerical, Integrator, and Calculator, lost its memory. MANIAC regained its memory when the power went off. And the dawn came. So they ran all night. 24 hours a day, this thing was running, mainly running bomb calculations. Nobody was supposed to know they were actually designing bombs. They were designing hydrogen bombs. But someone in the logbook late one night finally drew a bomb. So that was the result. It was Mike, the first thermonuclear bomb in 1952. That was designed on that machine in the woods behind the Institute.
Now, I wanted everyone to notice how that was a computer that was built after the ENIAC. It was called a MANIAC, and you can look up the word MANIAC and see how it relates to what they were using this machine for as an acronym. But that bomb was the hydrogen bomb, and that was the computer they used for all the calculations. And if you notice, they said a problem that would have took them 2 years to solve, they solved it in 2 hours with this computer. So this is powerful knowledge. Now, I'd like everyone to turn over to Matthew 24:29. It's found on page 753. And, you know, pastors talked a lot about this knowledge being increased, and what mankind has used it for, what the Catholic Church has used it for. Every time knowledge is increased, it gets used for war. Every time knowledge gets increased, how can I take this from my neighbor? But Matthew 24:29, it says, "Immediately but after that tribulation of those days will the sun be darkened, and the moon will not give her light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken." This computer has brought about the nuclear bombs, fulfilling this prophecy, where these machines would be able to be built to darken the sun in these last days. This computer has also brought war to the earth. I'd like you to turn over to Deuteronomy 30:19, found on page 173. It says, "I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Therefore choose life, so both you and your children may live." Brothers and sisters, the world has always taken the knowledge that is being increased and used it for war. This is what the way of the Catholics is. They take the knowledge and they use it for war every time. Cain also did this. Remember, Yahweh said, you know, if you do righteousness, will you not be accepted? If you do evil, there's a choice that you have to make. And the way of the Catholics is to choose this way of vengeance, war, vengeance, and retaliation. So, brothers and sisters, just keep this in mind. I'd also like to, the word unprecedented says without previous instant, never known, or experienced. And they said that about the nuclear warheads that they were showing there. So keep these things in mind. Everything that Pastor brings out and tells us, there's a meaning for it. And this right here is fulfilling one of the prophecies that would make mankind able to darken the sun in these last days, which will bring about Yahweh's plan, because Yahweh says, you know, I set before you this day life and death. You're free warriors to choose, and they're choosing their way. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the great Deacon T.O.R for prayer.